is Andrew ready?
I could imagine. It does slow pretty. I haven't seen a time stretch. I would think so. The way it's slow. All right, you ready?
Yep. All right. So, my name is Brighton Godwin, and I'm one of the owners of Independence Funding, commercial loan brokerage in Oklahoma City. And so I specialize in helping real estate investors get money for flips and rentals and stabilize their portfolios. I'm also an investor myself. I've probably lost more money in real estate than I've made in the last 8 years. And so today I'm going to be talking a little bit about how to fail successfully and how to avoid some of the mistakes that I've made in my real estate career. And then a little bit about what got me through it, and then there should be some time for questions after. So I guess a little bit about myself. So I bought my first house in 2017 when I was 20 years old, and similar to what Alex said, I house hacked it, rented out the spare bedroom, fixed it up over 3.5 years, and then eventually sold it and used that as a little bit of seed money to start investing full time. So January 2021, I started off strong. 2021, I bought 19 doors and then decided that wasn't enough. And so I doubled down and went for 100 in 2022 and fell flat on my face. And so I got to about 68 units whenever the market shifted. Interest rates jacked up from about mid 4 to 5% range all the way up to like 8.5, 9% range. And whenever that happened, I was in the middle of a like about a $500,000 rehab project on a 24-unit apartment, and had also bought, I think, 28 doors in Shawnee, and had this magnificent dream of becoming the king of Shawnee and buying 200 to 300 homes over the next 3 to 5 years to gentrify the area of Shawnee that everyone said don't buy houses there. And I was like, well, if I buy all of them, then I can change the entire market over there. Well, I had been in the middle of that and the project on the 24 unit. Market shifted and had a lot of funding back out on me for projects and refinances, which left me with little to no reserves and no money for remodeling some of these projects that I had acquired. And so probably by the end of 2022, beginning of 2023, I was nearing bankruptcy and had basically had to sell off the majority of everything I owned in order to stop the bleeding, as we say in real estate. And so, I would sell a house, get what I could get out of it in cash, and then throw it at the next debt, and paid off about $3 to $4 million worth of real estate related debt over the last few years. And so today, I've got 6 units left. All of them are stabilized, and the bleeding has stopped. Left with a few bumps and bruises along the way, but thankfully still here to tell the story and maybe teach some other people how to avoid some of the mistakes that I've been through. So part of failing successfully, I need to copyright that for my book that I haven't started writing yet. But part of that is having the hard conversations early with some of your creditors, choosing your creditors wisely, and just continuing to get creative and make strategic moves even whenever you're in a corner with your back against the wall. So something that I would do with my lenders was call them up 3 months before I think I might not be able to make a payment and let them know, hey, here's where I'm at. Based on the trajectory and the incoming rents, I don't think I'll be able to make a payment 3 months from now. And then they're just like, okay, well, let me know in 3 months where you're at. And I'm like, okay. Another month or two goes by. I'm like, okay, it's really not looking good. I tried to warn you. Here's where I'm at. And then next thing you know, it's like, I'm like, okay, the account's negative. I can't make a payment this month. And so basically 2 to 3 years of that, just having incredibly difficult conversations, sometimes even crying on the phone talking to lenders because I had to let every one of my staff go. I had about 5 people working full-time with me, and I had to let everybody go, went back to doing all my own property management, doing all the construction and rehabs myself, and navigating the majority of all of the difficulties myself. Thankfully, I was able to connect with 2 mentors, a business consultant and a good mentor of mine who kind of came in as like what I would consider an angel investor because they literally saved my butt from going bankrupt and kept me out of a lot of potential burdens that I was facing. And so seeking wise counsel is very important, and then having those hard conversations and not ostriching, as people call it, where you hide and bury your head in the sand and hope the problems go away. So you just gotta face the problems head on, and then just keep moving forward, even if it's an inch at a time. So that's kind of some of my backstory of how you can fail successfully. So Andrew asked me to analyze a few deals and explain how to avoid some of these mistakes that I've made, and also give an example of one of the deals that he bought recently. So I've got my handy dandy whiteboard here. Okay. This might be a little wobbly if you didn't notice, so let me see if I can fix that. Okay, can you see that? Let me get this out of the way. I think that's in the frame pretty good there. Does this work? All right, got a working marker. So, Andrew, I'm gonna talk about the 3 properties that we funded for you, your purchase. When was that? Like November, December last year. I may need you to fill in a little bit of the numbers on this so that I can fully analyze it. So, do you care about saying addresses or anything like that? Okay. Okay, so Andrew.
YouTube video on it.
Okay, perfect. All right, so Andrew bought 125 and 135 Southeast 45th Street, as well as 3113 Beechwood as a single package purchase from the same seller. And something cool about it is the seller wanted $220,000 for the 2 duplexes, which is 125 and 135 right next to each other in South Oklahoma City. And Andrew's like, yeah, I'm not going to pay that much for the 2 duplexes on the south side. And the seller said, well, I have this other house I could throw in. And he thought, now it makes sense. So he went ahead and bought the 2 duplexes in the house for $220,000. So I'm just going to write some figures down. Get this out of the way. So we can analyze this deal and see if it is a profitable venture for Andrew. So okay. And you'll have to excuse my handwriting, and if this is too small, let me know, and I will make it bigger. That's purchase price. Okay. So he bought it for $220,000. I went and reviewed the original closing statement from the purchase. We funded a loan of $308,000 for him to buy the 2 duplexes in house for $220,000. So the purchase loan $308K, which obviously is a lot more than he bought it for. So that included some remodel money for him. And I went back and verified. It looks like $10K of that went towards closing costs. So Andrew actually got to, I think you might have received a check for like $20 at closing. I know you didn't have to bring money to closing. Yeah, something like that. So, so he had a loan of that. He received $78K for rehab. Can everybody see that okay, decently? I know my handwriting is great. So, okay. So, and this was on a 6-month loan. So, we got very creative on this deal. This is part of something I really enjoy doing. Is, you know, just like I navigated all of my craziness over the last few years and got out of a lot of really difficult situations, I have the ability to get creative with these types of loans, and something that typically banks don't like to do or won't do at all. Most people just don't even think about this as an option. It's to tap into equity that you have in other real estate assets without having to refinance it or get a home equity line of credit, HELOC, on it. And so the way we do this is by doing what's called a cross-collateralized loan. And so you can buy the deal you're looking at by tying a second mortgage onto other assets you have that have substantial equity in them, and use that to offset what your potential down payment and closing costs could be. So we were able to increase this loan. Typically, a lender's not going to lend more than maybe 70%, max 75% of maybe the after repair value. In this scenario, Andrew was going to have to bring a pretty considerable amount of money or not receive rehab funds. And so we were able to offset this by tying a second mortgage on 2 other stabilized rentals that he had that were already remodeled on long-term stable financing, to get his loan amount bumped up so that he basically got paid to buy 5 more units. And so one thing I don't have on this, Andrew, is what the estimated ARV is.
We sold the one house for $137.
So you did get it sold.
Yeah, we got it sold.
Okay.
$137 is what we sold the house for. The ARV on it was $160, but we ended up getting $137 for it.
Okay.
And I do believe it was between $60,000 and $75,000 a unit on the duplexes. So that's it's hard to say.
So with these package deals, it's a little bit more complicated to evaluate because obviously he sold this house for $137,000. He only owed.
It was about $320 for $320 ARV on the 4 duplexes and the lot.
And whenever you sold that, did the lender make you give them every penny?
Every penny of it.
Okay.
Every penny of the little, we won't talk about it. We won't
Yeah.
use his names, but yeah, he
Okay.
made me pay every penny of it. And
Towards the 308.
towards the 308.
So basically 308 minus 137. So now you should owe roughly around 171-ish.
Exactly. Yeah.
So.
In fact, I had to bring $2,000 to closing to get it closed.
Sheesh.
Yep.
Okay, so
But also, there was no payments in this loan either. You forgot to mention that.
oh yeah.
So my holding cost was wrapped into that as well. So I feel like you put the holding cost on
Oh,
the entire loan
things.
in one payment.
Well, that's okay. That says payments. No monthly payments. That's another thing that we're able to do with a couple of our lenders is some of them will finance in their points and closing costs into the loan if there's room, and then some of them they'll also allow interest to accrue during the time of the loan term, and all the interest and points get paid on the payoff. So it effectively makes you have no holding costs or very little, at least related to the mortgage.
Nice
When you're scaling and buying a lot of assets, and next thing you know, let's say you're like Alex, you buy 3 to 5 units a month. It's like you could have, maybe $5,000 to $10,000 a month in mortgage payments on vacant units that you're remodeling. That you have to factor that into the cost, or you can finance that in to be paid on the payoff when you refinance or sell it, and you have more capital every month to keep going. So 308 minus the 137 puts you at, what did I say, 171 roughly. And you said the duplexes are around 60 to 75K per door.
It's about 300, and let me see here. I figure between 300 and 400, depending on where you pull your numbers. So we're hoping somewhere around 320 for the duplexes and the lot.
Oh, that's right. There was a free lot in there as well. Okay. So 320 divided by 4, that's 80, but you have that lot in there too. So, okay, so you're wanting to keep those 2 duplexes and refinance it. And last we talked, you're going to make that lot a parking,
It's just
a parking lot because you own like the entire square mile there or something crazy. So, okay, so you're expecting it to appraise for 320 altogether on that? That's the goal, right?
That's the goal.
And we can get you a loan for up to 75% of that on a cash out refinance. So 320 times 75%, that's a loan of $240,000. So he owes 171. I'm going to start up here. New loan. 240,000 minus what you currently owe, 171,000. And I know I'm a lender, but I don't do math in my head. That leaves $69,000 to cover closing costs and give you a check, potentially. So, assuming it appraises for the, what did I say, ARV on 2 duplexes. So the ARV on the two duplexes is $320K. We can get a loan amount of 75% of that on a cash out refi, minus his new payoff of 171 gives him 69K minus closing costs is what he's going to potentially receive. And then as far as cash flow numbers go, do you have them all rented already?
I got 2 of them that are up for rent. Right now, we'll rent it out for $3,500 a month, a grand
On 2 units?
There's 2 duplexes.
Oh, okay.
So
That's your
we'll get
estimated for all 4 units?
all units, yeah, we'll get 16, 8 and 8, and then 9, 25, and 925, because there's 2 one-bedrooms and 2 duplexes.
Okay.
And then we also added in washer dryer hookups and did a couple other things there, so.
Okay. Okay, cash flow. That's the name of the game. So, rents. And I'm going to do a quick calculation to figure out what his mortgage payment would be on a 30-year fixed rate. So, bear with me. Okay, we're doing a refinance. What's the loan amount? We got $240. So on a $240,000 loan, and I'm going to be conservative and estimate an interest rate of like 8%. Higher than probably what it would be, but I like to run my numbers conservatively now after the last few years. Imagine that. So, okay, so that would put your payment, I believe this is right. Oh, I'm going to do without taxes and insurance. We can add that in later. So on a 30-year fixed rate at 8% on a $240,000 loan, your monthly payment will be like $1,761. That is principal and interest. $1,761.03 to be exact. And then taxes and insurance. My Stein bucks are getting in the way. I don't know if you can see this, but that is Larry Stein right there, our Oklahoma County tax assessor. It says save $100 or more on your property taxes. I kept that as a souvenir. I pay them a lot of money every year. Okay, Andrew, what is your estimated taxes and insurance per year?
Oh, I don't, let me see, per year, I break it down per month. It'll be.
What is it per month?
It'll be 75 and 75, so 120, and then it'll be about the same, so probably about
240
yeah, 240 a
per
month.
month for taxes and insurance as an estimate? Okay. 240. So his total monthly payment is estimated to be $2,001.03. I'm going to round it to $2,000 just so we have a clean, even number. Debt. Oh no, I'm not going to name it that. I'm running out of room here, guys. Okay. We'll move it over here. So we're going to call this debt service coverage ratio. Okay, the 30-year fixed rate loans that I do at Independence Funding are called DSCR loans, which is debt service coverage ratio, and it's a ratio of your debt payment to its service, which is the rents. And so to come up with that ratio to determine if it qualifies for the 30-year fixed, you have to run a quick calculation, which would be your total monthly payment, which is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So we've got $2,000 divided by $3,500. And I might have done that backwards, but we'll see. Oops. I did it backwards. $3,500 divided by 2,000. So basically you want to see, does $3,500 a month in rent income cover the $2,000 a month in his debt payment? It's pretty obvious there, but what the lenders like to see is if it meets at least a minimum of 1.1 to 1.2 DSCR. And divided by 2,000, that's a 1.75 DSCR, almost a 2% deal, which is really good. So this is the golden ticket number. That means that his rents are covering 75% more than his mortgage payment, or 175% of his mortgage payment.
Question.
What?
I've heard so many banks go over back and forth of the DSCR and how to calculate it, and in my master spreadsheet I have two different calculations in there. One of which the bank here told me, he says he wants to see a 1.2 to 1.5, and he doesn't take the taxes and insurance, maintenance, and all those other things into calculation. He just goes 1.25, 1.2 to 1.3% of rent to their mortgage payment. And I figure that 0.2 is enough to cover all the other figures. And then sometimes I hear people like actually want to take out the stuff. So in mine I have both calculators, but what is it that the banks is really looking for, and how does the banks really do it, or does every bank do it differently?
Every bank, it's up to their discretion. So I know with most of our lenders, they want to do the PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. I know other lenders, they take 90% of your rent income and use that number divided by the rent payment. And so that they're trying to account for, management and maintenance and vacancy and stuff. So they'll take 90% of the gross monthly rents divided by the debt payment, which includes principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, which that can hurt you a lot whenever it comes. I mean, that's going to affect this number quite a bit. If we take 3,500 times 0.9, that drops $350 off of the rent, divided by 2,000 in debt payment. That drops you from 1.75 to 1.58. Still a super good DSCR, but I mean it's.
But not if your banker wants to see a 1.
If it's a and I haven't. None of our lenders want to see a 1 point. I mean that's. But also, if they're not taking into account taxes and insurance or vacancy and maintenance and stuff, it makes sense why they would increase their minimum DSCR, because they're calculating DSCR based on just your principal and interest payment compared to your rents. So they're increasing their minimum DSCR to account for that. So they're still accounting for it, they're just doing it in a different way.
I feel like everybody has the same calculation and just figure it differently. It's like some is
Yeah.
90% of rents minus this to make up for that 10%
Yeah.
over here, over there.
Yeah.
So when I'm telling my students, and I'm going through this with my students, what is the best way? So for right now, I'm telling them I'm just skipping all the taxes and insurance and all that stuff. I'm looking at the payment versus the